Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I like the several key words. One is ecosystem, another one is AI-driven. The third one is industry and academia cooperation. Actually, I was invited by Professor Lee to share my idea about how for us to face the challenge of AI. Actually, several speakers have mentioned about the challenges. But here, I would like to show you the case. In the last 20 years, we have explored what's our solution to face the challenge. So today, I would share briefly about what we have done. But I would like to start from this one. You can see technology is not always bring the good thing to education. Sometimes technology perhaps harm the education. So here you can see Generation Z test wars on cognitive capabilities than cohort before. So we have to answer the question, what's the pros and what's the cons for the current education to educate, current technology to education. So when we study about the challenges from AI, we can see there are many trends. First one is overflow of information knowledge and know it all with shallow mind for the students. And perhaps in future, many students, when they graduate, they would be difficult to find a job. So the trend is that knowledge teaching, knowledge education's value is reduced greatly. And quality education would be important because in future, if students stand higher, AI would be the tool or co-creator. If students stand lower, the students would be the slave of the AI. So how for us to help the students develop their imagination, their creation, their integration capabilities? And how for us to help students to face the future? Human AI would be a normal. Cooperation would be normal. So even the purpose of education has been changed. For example, education is trying to avoid ignorance. But now, people are difficult to be ignorance. People almost know everything. But how for the people to survive in the future turbulent environment? I think that's the key challenge for the education. So we have to answer this question. How for us to reshape education to meet the future developed trend and the demand? So that's our answer. So how for us to predict what's the future education? Actually, there are a lot of such kind of studies, but here I highlight a few points. The first one is beyond the campus. In future, it's easy for students to learn in anywhere, anytime. And another one, cross-border. Country is not the border. It's perhaps the student can study in different parts of the world. Future education would be more demand-oriented, technology-driven, and human-computer symbiosis. So the future education would change from knowledge education to a whole person education. For the whole person education, there are several unique features. The first one is personalized. Everyone needs to follow his or her own learning process. It's not learning in the same class with the same teacher. And another one is interest-driven, and the third one, lifelong learning. The fourth one is blended. It's blended. I think Professor Gong has mentioned about the silos among the different disciplines. So in future, it's necessary for us to blend the different sector into a whole organic system. Last one is AI support. So what's the future learning scenario? I think it's easy for all the people to reach the knowledge human beings have accumulated with a very high efficiency because the AI can summarize what the human being have accumulated the knowledge and even give you a solution. The key is that how for you to make a judgment about the solution. Is the solution right or wrong or a cheat? So that's the key. So we have to change the education as it's easy because First, the few speakers mentioned about the change. Here, my question is how for us to change? I think the how is more important than raise the question because we know the questions, but the practice is difficult. So I think the first key issue for education is to redefine talents for future. What's the future talents? Knowledge is not important, but what's the key competencies? So we need to define the competencies framework for different kinds of people. Secondly, it's necessary for us to change from content education to the whole person education. And thirdly, to help human being to living with a computer, with AI. Perhaps the future education would be a more socialized or ecologized. Students can learn anywhere. Students can work with AI anywhere. So that's the future education. So think about the future education. Perhaps it's critical for us to help the student to grow up quickly. So in our university, we use 4 words to guide our education. First one, awaken. Let the student understand their responsibility. They are independent people. They need to develop critical thinking. And secondly, ignite them. Currently, most of the people are still learning for credits, learning for degrees. The value of degrees disappeared in future. How for us to let the student to understand better about themselves, about the future, about their career plan, and then motivate the student to learn more actively. Third, support. Students understand about their future. They develop as independent learners, and then university would create the platform to support the student to follow their personal plan to learn. Last one, I think is very, very important, is to create the atmosphere, the culture, the campus life. Perhaps that's a future campus value. Otherwise, the future campus would have no value. So think about that. Future education, here I list several key issues. The first one is content. For the content, it's not important at this stage. From data to information to knowledge to solutions generated by AI. Perhaps conspiracy theories. How for the student to make judgment, to know the solution. So insight and wisdom. I think now it's easy for all the students, no matter where the student living in the world, they can reach this very easily. The key is context. How for us to create a context, put the student into the context to learn. Okay, have 5 minutes. Okay. I think it's necessary for me to, I think in the future education, it would pay more attention to the context. We needed to create context, use really problem, use really context to support the student to learn the knowledge. Learn knowledge is means. Growth is the purpose. The student have to pass a very serious process. Playing would be the future education. And then atmosphere, and then quality. Outcome. Outcome would be quality, mindset, wisdom, capacity, and AI skill and ethics. So in the last 20 years, we have been trying very hard to reshape this landscape. Look at this one. 90% of education are still disciplined education. But when the student graduate, 80% of students couldn't compete with AI. How for us to make this one? Many universities are trying to develop interdisciplinary education. But from our education, we made several explorations. The first one, to improve the currently disciplined education, to develop our 1.0 education model is a professional elites with industry background. If the student wants to survive in society, they needed to follow the education, similar with this one. They need a disciplinary education, interdisciplinary education, and entrepreneurial education. So we call this one as a Syntegrative education. We have created our second model, Syntegrative education. And think about digitalization, which has blurred the boundaries. It's easy for us to integrate resources from different sectors to create ecosystem. So in the last 20 years, we have created industry, university, research, and government society ecosystem. So we develop our third model to create an industry innovation ecosystem. All the models needed to strengthen the quality education. Recently, we raised our 4.0 model because we are anticipate in future there would be a lot of challenges from society, the gap between rich, poor, and the governance of society. So how for us to use university to develop a future lifelong learning, innovative social ecosystem? That's our 4.0 model. So in the last 20 years, our university is trying to develop a solution to the digitalization era. So we use our limited resources, we develop a very strong network and the ecosystem. We have developed 3 education models. One, elite education, Syntegrative education, ecosystem education. We expand our education exploration to primary, secondary education, and also vocational education. And then we can impact the education in China and beyond. We develop a learning mall to support the educational exploration. We have formed our education philosophy. For example, personalized, interest-driven, lifelong learning, syntegrative education, internationalization and globalization, human-machine symbiosis. Recently, we have strengthened industry, university, research, government, and society to develop an eco-mall to support the combination to create the ecosystem. That's our practice. So I think here I have no time to give you an example. I have 1 minute only show that's our new campus, which is give up the disciplinary education. We use syntegrative education to integrate the knowledge used to be delivered in disciplinary. For example, we have developed 7 platforms to develop a quite new education model. And we do 4 experiments. What's the syntegrative education for future? And what's the future university? What's the future university campus? How for us to run multiple centers organically. So you can see we start from industry. And then we predict what's the future business model, what's the future technology, what's the future talents. And then university, industry work together to explore how for us to create a university. And then we work together to train the students. So that's our one example. So you can see all the students can work with a really problem. Here, students can be supported by university. We have cool venture platform, innovation factories. Our staff can work with industry to use really problem to conduct research in the industry context. So that's what we have done here. I think the time is limited, but I would like to show you one example. Not example, it's a logic. What's the logic behind the ecosystem development? University is a non-profit organization. It's relative for university to integrate resources from government, from industry, and then create the ecosystem by developing 2 platforms to create the innovative ecosystem, and then to enjoy the eco-dividends. So that's the logic behind the ecosystem and the industry academia cooperation. So we have developed our system based on this logic. Thanks for your attention. Thanks.